The city was alive with light and shadow. Paris in autumn wore a cloak of golden leaves and soft rain, the streets shining wet under the street lamps. Cafes buzzed with laughter and music, and somewhere a violin sang a lonely melody. Dean adjusted the focus on his camera and scanned the crowd. A photojournalist by trade, he was always chasing stories, but tonight felt different, electric, charged. His eye caught movement. A woman. She stood out like a flame against the gray crowd. A striking woman in a deep red coat, the color vibrant and almost otherworldly in the fading daylight. Her dark hair tumbled in waves around her face, her eyes bright yet distant as she moved through the throng. Dean raised his camera, capturing her silhouette framed by the old stone buildings. Click. But as he lowered the camera, she vanished. He blinked, startled. Where had she gone? The crowd pressed around him, but the woman was gone without a trace. Dean's heart pounded in his chest. Who was she? Why had she slipped away so fast? That night, Dean wandered the streets, unable to shake the image of the woman in red. He found himself at the Cathedral of Notre Dame, the great stone walls rising solemn and majestic under a silver moon. There, inside the quiet shadows of the cathedral, he saw her again. She sat alone on a wooden pew, her red coat folded neatly beside her, her hands trembling in her lap. Tears slipped down her cheeks, catching the candlelight. Dean hesitated, then stepped closer. "Are you okay?" His voice was gentle, cautious. She looked up, startled, her eyes wide and shimmering. "I'm Mira," she said softly, voice barely above a whisper. "Dean," he replied. "Do you want to talk?" She shook her head, but something in her gaze told him she wanted to be heard. Instead, she slipped away before he could say more, melting like mist into the night. Over the next few days, Dean returned to the cathedral, to the cafes, to the bustling streets of Paris. Everywhere he looked, he searched for the woman in red. The mystery of her presence tugged at him like a thread through his soul. One rainy evening, he spotted her again, standing outside a tiny cafe, a warm glow spilling from the windows. He moved toward her slowly, nerves twisting in his stomach. "May I join you?" he asked. She nodded, and inside, the world shrank to candlelight and quiet whispers. Their hands brushed over the table, and Dean felt a spark, a current that danced through his veins. Her eyes held his, dark and deep, and in that moment the rain outside ceased to exist. They talked softly, about Paris, about dreams, about loneliness. She told him little, but her voice was like a melody he wanted to memorize. Days turned into nights filled with stolen meetings. They wandered through narrow alleys where only stars watched them, their laughter echoing against ancient walls. Dean showed her his favorite bookstore, where old leather-bound volumes whispered secrets of forgotten times. She smiled at his passion, her fingers tracing the spines of books like they held the answers to her own mysteries. One night, they danced in the rain beneath the shimmering glow of street lamps, their bodies close, hearts beating in time. Dean kissed her slowly, savoring the softness of her lips and the trembling promise in her touch. But every time he looked into her eyes, he saw a flicker of sadness, a shadow she hid carefully. In a small park beneath the Eiffel Tower, Dean finally asked the question that had haunted him since their first meeting. "Who are you, really?" She paused, her breath catching. "My name is Mira," she said again, but her voice held a secret he couldn't reach. "I'm afraid to tell you more." He took her hand. "I don't want your secrets. Just you." For the first time, she smiled fully, a fragile, beautiful thing. "I want to trust you," she whispered. The night air grew colder, but they stayed wrapped in each other's warmth on a bench beneath blooming cherry blossoms. Dean held her close, feeling the slow burn of desire, the fragile hope of something new. She rested her head on his shoulder, her breath soft against his skin. "Stay with me," she murmured. "I will," he promised. And under the moonlit sky, two strangers became something more, two souls beginning to intertwine against the endless backdrop of Paris, love blooming slowly amid the shadows of secrets yet to be told. The city glittered under the moon's pale gaze, Paris alive with whispers and secrets. Dean found himself drawn into Myra's world, one painted in shadows and half-truths. They met under the veil of night, when the streets emptied and the city's pulse slowed to a quiet rhythm. Each evening began with a simple message, a text on Dean's phone that read like a promise. "Meet me where the lights forget to shine." He knew where she meant, the rooftops above Montmartre, where the city stretched endlessly beneath them, lights flickering like stars. Their first secret meeting after the cafe was on a cool autumn night. Mira was waiting, her red coat swapped for a sleek black jacket that fluttered in the breeze. Dean approached quietly, his camera slung over his shoulder, but tonight the lens stayed hidden. They climbed the narrow stairs, breath visible in the cold air, until they reached the rooftop where Paris lay spread like a dream. Myra's eyes caught the glow of the city lights, but every so often she glanced nervously over her shoulder, as if the shadows might take shape. Dean stepped closer, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "Why do you keep looking back?" he asked softly. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Because some ghosts don't stay buried," she said. They wandered through quiet streets, their footsteps a soft echo on cobblestones slick with recent rain. Mira led Dean to a jazz bar tucked between two ancient buildings. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and melancholy saxophone melodies. Dean watched as Mira slipped into the dim light, her eyes closing briefly as the music swelled. He felt an ache deep in his chest, pulled toward her like a moth to flame. They talked in whispers over clinking glasses, fingers entwined beneath the table. But whenever Dean pressed her about her past, Myra's gaze hardened and the shadows deepened around her. As days passed, Dean's feelings grew stronger, pulling him deeper into the mystery. He saw the way Mira flinched when strangers passed too close, the way her phone buzzed with messages she hid from him. One evening, while walking beside the Seine, he noticed a man standing across the street, watching Mira with cold, unblinking eyes. Dean's heart hammered. He reached for her hand, squeezing it tight. "Someone's following you," he said. Myra's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Their nights were a delicate dance of passion and caution. One night, Dean invited Mira to his apartment, a small space filled with photographs and memories frozen in time. He led her to the dark room, a room bathed in the deep red glow of developing lights. The scent of chemicals and paper filled the air as Dean closed the door behind them. Myra's eyes adjusted slowly to the light. Dean reached for her hand again, guiding her closer. In the hush of the darkroom, under the crimson glow, their lips met. It was tentative at first, a whisper of a kiss, but quickly grew fierce with longing. Whispers of their names mingled with the soft hum of the enlarger. The camera lay forgotten in the corner as they explored each other's bodies with desperate tenderness. Morning light filtered through the curtains as they lay tangled in sheets, breath mingling and hearts racing. Dean traced the curve of Myra's shoulder, memorizing every detail. But even in the warmth of the dawn, the fear in her eyes lingered. "Why won't you tell me?" Dean asked gently. Mira turned away, tears glistening. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of what they'll do if they find me." Dean held her close. "You're not alone." Days blurred into nights filled with secret meetings, whispered promises, and stolen moments. Dean's photographs began to change, no longer just pictures of the city but glimpses of Myra's hidden soul. Yet, behind the tenderness, the shadows grew longer. Dean caught glimpses of the watchers in the crowd, the unmarked cars that followed from a distance. He vowed silently to protect her, no matter the cost. One evening, as they walked hand in hand along the Pont Neuf, Mira stopped suddenly. Her eyes searched the darkness, breath hitching. "I can't keep running," she whispered. Dean pulled her close. "We'll face it together." Her eyes met his, wide, vulnerable, but filled with a fierce determination. And in that moment, beneath the shimmering Parisian moonlight, Dean realized that loving Mira meant stepping into the unknown. The morning light poured softly through the window of Dean's apartment, casting a golden hue over the scattered photographs and books lining the shelves. It was a quiet start to a restless day. Dean sat at his kitchen table, a cup of coffee steaming in front of him, but his mind was far from the mundane. His camera lay beside him, the film freshly developed and ready to be examined. He picked up the first photo, a close shot of Mira laughing, her dark hair catching the light, eyes sparkling with a rare moment of pure joy. But it was the second photo that stopped his breath. In the background, half hidden by a stack of crates in the bustling Parisian market, a man stood watching. His eyes were sharp, cold, and fixed intently on Mira. Dean's heart clenched. Who was this man? And why was he watching her so closely? Dean called Mira that afternoon. His voice was steady, but the undercurrent of worry was clear. "I found someone in the photo watching you." There was a pause on the other end. "I didn't want you to see that," Mira said finally, her voice low and strained. "Who is he?" Mira sighed deeply. "He's part of the past I've been running from." Dean waited, patient. After a long silence, she spoke. "My real life is complicated. I was never meant to fall in love. Not with someone like you." Dean frowned, sensing the weight of her words. "Tell me." They met that evening in a small, dimly lit cafe hidden in a quiet corner of the city. The scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the faint notes of a violin playing somewhere nearby. Mira sat across from him, her eyes tired but resolute. "I used to work for an intelligence agency," she confessed. Dean blinked, startled. It was a truth far removed from the woman he thought he knew. "I wasn't just an agent," she continued. "I was a handler. Someone who controlled information, people." Dean reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "But you're here now. With me." "Yes," she said softly. "But there's someone from that world, someone dangerous who thinks I betrayed him." Dean's jaw tightened. "Who?" "Damien," she whispered. The name hung heavy between them. "He's ruthless, powerful, and he won't stop until he finds me." Dean squeezed her hand. "I don't care who you were. I want to protect you." Mira looked away, fear flickering in her eyes. "Protecting me means danger follows you too." That night, they returned to Dean's apartment, the city's lights twinkling softly beyond the window. The tension between them was palpable, fear and love intertwined like vines. Myra's hands trembled as she reached for Dean, pulling him close. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for dragging you into this." Dean brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch tender. "We're in this together." But Myra's fear was real. She clung to him tightly as if holding on to him was the only thing keeping her grounded. Hours passed in a haze of whispered confessions and aching silence. Their bodies entwined in a desperate dance, love and pain merging. Tears slid down Myra's cheeks as she pressed her forehead against Dean's. "I don't want to lose you," she said. Dean kissed her, slow and fierce, promising without words that he wouldn't let go. They stayed awake through the night, holding each other against the cold shadows creeping into the room. In the days that followed, Dean became Myra's shield and anchor. He tracked the movements of the man in the photo, digging deeper into the secrets surrounding her. But every step closer to the truth only brought more danger. Myra's fear grew, but so did her trust in Dean. One evening, as they walked through a quiet park, Mira stopped and looked up at him. "If we survive this, I want a life without secrets," she said softly. Dean smiled, hope lighting his eyes. "Then we'll make it happen. Together." The night air was thick with smoke and chaos. Dean's world was on fire. He had been asleep when it started, an acrid smell waking him, sharp and urgent. Flames licked the walls of his apartment, dancing dangerously close to the photographs and memories he had carefully collected over the years. He grabbed his phone, coughing as the smoke filled the room, and dialed Myra's number, but there was only silence. Panic clawed at his chest. This wasn't an accident. Someone had wanted to destroy everything, and maybe more. Frantic, Dean burst out into the streets of Paris, the glow of the burning building reflected in his wide eyes. The fire trucks screamed past, hoses spraying water against the raging inferno. But Mira was nowhere to be found. He paced the sidewalk, calling her name into the night. His heart pounded in his ears. Where had she gone? The city seemed darker than ever as Dean raced through the winding streets. He followed a trail of faint clues, messages Mira had left, a scrap of paper tucked inside a book at a small bookstore, a whispered address scribbled in hurried handwriting. Each step took him deeper into Paris' underbelly, shadowed alleys and secret speakeasies where jazz filled the air, smoke curled around low conversations, and danger whispered from every corner. In one such hidden room beneath the city, Dean finally found her. Mira was slumped against the cold stone wall near the Seine, her red coat torn, blood staining her pale skin. She looked up at him, pain flickering in her eyes but relief washing over her face. "Dean," she breathed. He dropped to his knees beside her, heart shattering. "Sure, I've got you," he murmured, pulling his jacket tight around her wounds. They slipped into the bookstore's back room, a sanctuary filled with dusty shelves and the faint scent of old paper. Dean tore a strip from his shirt and pressed it against Myra's bleeding arm. His hands were gentle, shaking as he worked. "Who did this?" he asked fiercely. Myra's voice was weak but steady. "Damien." Dean's jaw clenched. Not again. As the adrenaline faded, exhaustion and pain took over. Myra's breath was shallow and Dean's heart ached at the sight. He brushed her hair back from her face, fingers lingering on the softness. "Stay with me," he whispered. Her eyes fluttered closed and he cupped her face, pressing a kiss to her forehead. In that moment, everything else fell away, the danger, the fear, the secrets. There was only them. Hours passed as Dean tended to Myra's wounds, the small room their world. They shared whispered stories, memories of better times, and dreams of a future that seemed fragile but real. Mira rested her head on Dean's chest, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. "I'm scared," she admitted softly. Dean tightened his arms around her. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." As dawn approached, the city outside began to stir. Paris had burned that night, not just in flames but in the love that refused to be broken. Dean and Mira, two souls caught in chaos, held on fiercely to each other. No matter what came next, they had this moment, fragile, aching, and true. Countryside was a world away from the restless city, rolling hills kissed by golden sunlight, vineyards stretching beyond the horizon, and the quiet hum of nature replacing the chaos of Paris. Dean and Mira arrived at the villa just as dusk was settling, the fading light casting long shadows over the ivy-covered stone walls. They stepped inside, the old wooden door creaking softly behind them, sealing away the danger for now. Here, in this secluded sanctuary, they could pretend for a while. The villa was cozy, worn but beautiful, with large windows that framed the twilight sky. Dean set down his bag, the weight of the last few weeks momentarily lifting. Mira took a deep breath, the scent of lavender and old wood soothing her nerves. They exchanged a glance, silent understanding passing between them. For the first time in what felt like forever, they could just be. They moved through the kitchen together, a dance of familiarity and tentative joy. Dean chopped fresh herbs while Mira stirred a simmering pot of stew, their laughter filling the room as they playfully teased each other. The clinking of utensils and the aroma of cooking food grounded them, weaving a fragile thread of normalcy. That night, beneath a sky freckled with stars, they danced barefoot in the villa's courtyard. Mira twirled, her laughter light and carefree, the red coat long gone, replaced by a soft shawl that brushed her shoulders. Dean held her close, their bodies swaying gently to the music of the night, the rustling leaves and distant owl calls their only orchestra. In that moment, the world was silent but for the beating of their hearts. Later, they retreated inside, the soft glow of candlelight casting shadows on the walls. Dean led Mira to a large clawfoot bathtub filled with steaming water scented with lavender and rose. Dean curled around them as they slipped inside, the warmth a balm against the chill. Mira laughed as Dean splashed water playfully, droplets sparkling in the candlelight. For the first time, the walls she had built around herself seemed to crumble. In the quiet that followed, their eyes met, soft, reverent. Dean brushed a strand of wet hair from Myra's face, his fingers lingering on the curve of her cheek. "I want to know everything," he whispered. Mira hesitated, then nodded. "My real name is Amara," she said, her voice barely above a breath. Dean repeated it softly. "Amara." Felt like a promise, a new beginning. Later, in the bed by the open window, they lay tangled in sheets and whispered confessions. Amara's skin was warm beneath Dean's touch, every sigh and shiver a testament to their fragile love. They spoke of dreams, of a future where fear no longer ruled, where they could live openly and freely. Their hands found each other in the dark, fingers interlacing as if to anchor their hopes. But even in this safe haven, the shadows lingered. Amara's eyes darkened at times, haunted by memories she couldn't escape. Dean held her close, offering what comfort he could. "We'll face it all," he vowed. Together. Days passed in a dreamlike haze, simple joys and stolen moments. They cooked breakfast in silence, watched the sunrise from the terrace, and made love beneath the stars. Each moment was precious, a fragile thread weaving their hearts closer. But the world outside waited, and soon they would have to leave their sanctuary. For now, though, they held on to this love, their refuge in a storm. Amara and Dean, two souls entwined, finding light in each other's arms. No matter what came next, this was their truth. The city was cloaked in early morning fog when Dean's world shattered. He didn't see it coming, the betrayal, the trap. One moment he was walking down a narrow street near the Seine, the cobblestones slick with dew. The next, rough hands grabbed him from behind. A blindfold was pressed over his eyes, muffling his protests. He was captured by the agency he had thought he understood, the very organization that had haunted Amara's past. In a sterile, cold room, Dean was questioned relentlessly. The walls seemed to close in around him, each interrogation a knife twisting deeper. He clenched his fists, thinking only of Amara, praying she was safe. But deep down, a dark fear gnawed at him. Someone had betrayed them. Meanwhile, Amara was nowhere to be found. She had vanished from their safe house, leaving behind only a note soaked with tears and resolve. "I'm trading myself for him," it read. Dean's heart shattered. She believed this would save him. The days that followed were a blur of desperation and fury. Dean's only hope came from an unexpected source, Lena, an ex-agent disillusioned with the agency's ruthless methods. She appeared like a shadow in the night, slipping him a small key and a plan. Get out. Find her. End this. Dean escaped under cover of darkness, the city's neon lights flickering like distant stars. He moved fast, fueled by love and fury. Every step brought him closer to the agency's compound, a fortress hidden beneath the city's underbelly. He breached the perimeter, heart pounding, senses on high alert. Inside, chaos reigned. Smoke curled through the hallways, alarms blared. Amara was held in a small cell, bruised but defiant. When Dean burst through the door, their eyes locked, relief and pain crashing over them. Without words, they lunged into each other's arms. Their reunion was fierce, desperate. Dean's lips found hers amid the smoke and blood, tasting hope and sorrow. Amara's fingers tangled in his hair, holding him like the world was ending. They clung together as if letting go would mean losing the last piece of light. But their fight was far from over. With Lena's help, they navigated the maze of corridors, evading guards and traps. Their bond, forged in fire, was their greatest weapon. Outside, dawn was breaking. Dean and Amara emerged from the shadows, battered but unbroken. They knew the battle wasn't finished, but their love was. No matter what came next, they had each other. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds of Dean's studio, casting long shadows over walls lined with photographs, each telling a story, each capturing a moment of truth. Among them, one photo stood out, a grainy image of a man lurking in the background, watching Amara with an intensity that chilled the soul. Dean held the print carefully, knowing this single picture was more than just an image. It was the key to her freedom. Months had passed since their harrowing escape from the agency's clutches. Their fight had been brutal, their love tested in fire and blood. But now justice was within reach. Dean had worked tirelessly to expose the agency's darkest secrets, using the photo as the linchpin in his damning exposé. The article hit the press like a bombshell. Headlines screamed of corruption, abuse, and espionage. The agency was forced into the light, investigations launched, arrests made. Most notably, the man who had stalked Amara, the Watcher in the shadows, was captured and brought to justice. For Amara, the victory was bittersweet. She was granted asylum under a new identity, free from the chains of her past but burdened by the scars it left behind. Yet, for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope. Their reunion was set against the romantic backdrop of Venice. Dean had organized an exhibit, a collection of photographs titled "The Woman I Waited For," capturing their journey through shadows and light, fear and love. Amara arrived at the palazzo where the exhibit was held, heart pounding with anticipation. Dean greeted her with a smile that melted away the years of pain. Together they walked through the gallery, each image a testament to their survival and love. As the evening deepened, the crowd thinned. Dean led Amara to a quiet, candlelit room in the palazzo. Mirrors lined the walls, reflecting their silhouettes as they embraced. Their kisses were slow and tender, each touch a vow renewed. No longer hunted, Amara was finally his. They made love beneath the soft glow of flickering candles, the world outside fading away. In this moment they were whole, two souls united by fate, love, and the courage to fight for a future together. As dawn broke over the Venetian canals, Amara and Dean lay entwined, their hearts beating as one. She whispered his name, soft and sure. He held her close, knowing this was only the beginning. Together they would write a new story, one without fear, without shadows. A story of love that had survived everything. Forever,